Hi there, welcome to the first podcast. I've been thinking a long time about this, and I've got the perfect first guest for you. His name is Biplav. He's doing his PhD right now in Poland, and if you are interested in studying in Poland or studying abroad in general, this will be very interesting for you. And yeah, let's get on with it. Hi there, welcome to our first podcast. We are doing the series about studying in Poland. Today I have with me Biplav. Biplav is a PhD student right
Hi,
now. He has done his bachelor's and master's from IISc Bangalore through the Kishore Vaigyanik Protsahan Yojana. Very excellent individual. And yeah, Biplav, happy to have you on the podcast.
uh,
So,
thank you
welcome.
for having me.
Before we get into the nitty gritty of your experience in Poland, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your academic background before you started your PhD?
Uh-huh. Okay, so a little bit about myself. So I come from a remote village in West Bengal, which is on the east side of, okay, in case you didn't know, it is in the east side of India. Um, and yeah, I did my schooling mostly inside my district, which is not that developed. Okay, I don't think you should put it there, but anyway. Okay, so I did until I was 17. I did my schooling until 12th standard there, and then after 12th standard, I wanted to pursue physics, so I chose ISC, and there I did my bachelor's and master's, and after that, I'm here in Poland in Wrocław with my PhD.
Okay, that's like yeah, India is
So
very
that's like the academic journey.
yeah. I mean, so India is very competitive in that first many students who are doing their bachelor even in 12th standard they're doing JEE mains and advanced, and for biology they're doing other exams, whether it be AIMS or any other one. So there is this competition that lingers on, that continues sort of. For example, like even after bachelor's and BTech, there is this exam like GATE that they have to take to go into further studies. So, what was your thought process when you decided one about doing your PhD, and two, like one, whether or not to do it, and two, where you wanted to do it? Like, what was your thought process back then?
So maybe I should okay, about the competitive exams. Of course, growing in how do you say, in the Indian society, I am also part of this rat race, and I was quite good at exams and all these competitive exams. Okay, it's like if you're good at studies, you are also. It's basically if you're good at competitive exam, people think that you are good at studies. So in that sense, I was good. Other sense, not so much, but yeah. So like for me, I always wanted to go for medical until class 10. But after that, uh, my interest, my understanding of the other field started to increase, and then I kind of switched to physics because physics at 12th standard, 11th standard uh, was very interesting to me compared to other subjects. Uh, okay, and biology was always interesting to me. That's why I wanted to be a doctor, quote unquote. I still want to be a doctor, a different kind of, but yeah, but still, like growing up, I had this dream of becoming a medical doctor, which didn't work out in the sense that after 12th standard, although not didn't work out, like I got a decent rank uh, where I could choose almost any institute in India. But yeah, because biology, especially human biology, didn't interest me at all. I like plants way more than animals. But yeah, but still, like for some reason, physics interested me uh, a lot. And then I talked with many professors, like many teachers of my school, talked to them like, about whether it's a valid choice or not. And most of the teachers back there was very uh, supportive of my decision that, I should go for bachelor's degree in ISC because I was supposed to be one of the.
Would you say you received very good advice? And the reason I ask this question is it's very difficult to decide at 18 years of age what you want to study, where you want to study. So with that context, like, did you receive good advice, or like how do you look back at it?
Uh, I would say yes, because especially from my parents, both of my parents are very supportive of my almost any decisions. Like after, I don't know, I was 10 or 12, I don't think they have uh, interjected with any of my decisions in life. So that played a very big role. And when I told them about not going for medical, then uh, my father was always wanted to be a doctor. He couldn't, so it was slightly disappointing to him, but he didn't say anything, and he was very supportive about my decision. So in that sense, I didn't have any, how do you say, struggle to convince my parents or even to convince myself that, which in some senses was very lucky that you I found something which I like, and not all people, but many people were very supportive about that decision, even though most of the people didn't know about IIC, whether it will be good for my career or
Hmm. Is there any suggestion or any words of wisdom that you would give to specifically 18, 19 year olds who are deciding like what to do?
not. It's tough to say because in some sense, for me it was kind of, how do you say, I was very lucky that things I'm most interested in somehow got aligned with the expectation of the society as well. So when I said that I wanted to do physics, no one was, completely, how do you say, against the idea of doing physics. Uh, on the other hand, if let's say you suddenly decided to be a musician or something else, uh, people might not be that like that supportive of you. So in that case, I don't think I should be the I would be the best person to give you advice, because in that sense, I was very lucky, and it has been easy for me. Yeah, circumstances somehow favored me in almost all directions.
All right. So I'm very happy that you received great
Yeah, but
advice and.
in some sense, I would suggest, like, uh, you should try a lot of things
Mhm.
and not necessarily the things that other people want you to try. And ultimately, it's your decision. And if you think something is right for you, I don't think you should. Okay, it will be a struggle,
Mhm.
but it's a struggle worth fighting.
Yeah. Like it wouldn't matter in, let's say, a period of 10 to 20 years. It would seem very insignificant, whatever the pressure is at this stage.
Yeah, I mean, technically, most of the expectation that people have, especially in Indian context, their expectations are quite high, and only, let's say, less than 1% of good student can actually achieve that, because there are not many uh, positions available, right? So it doesn't matter how good you are. Almost 99% of the people will not go there. It doesn't matter whether they are good or bad, or it doesn't matter. So, and I don't think people should be subjected to such, I guess, pressure, because almost every, like, after let's say 25 or 30, most of the people who didn't even go there, they also find some other job and they're quite happy with it, right?
Yeah, I think that at this stage, India needs to develop a sort of entrepreneurial culture, which is that we have to be more accepting of failures, because as you mentioned, like there are only 1% of places available for the expectations. So 99% of the population, young population, and their respective families and parents have to be supportive when there is a failure, like whether it be in 10th class, 12th class, JE at AIMS, because potentially these failures shape us, and they teach us that it's not the end. I also speak briefly about all the suicide cases that happen in cities where competitive exam coachings are taking place, whether it be Kota or Indore or places Hyderabad as well. Like, I think that we have to be more accepting of failures as a society in general, um, and our expectations would be a bit less. Like, any comments on the thought?
Yeah, it also has to do with like how people see different jobs. For example, some jobs are um, regarded highly, like highly regarded jobs, and other jobs are not, which is in some sense weird because most, like there are many jobs which serves like very useful purpose in our society, and yet just because they are not, let's say, doctor or engineer, people don't care about them, but they are still very reasonable job. And this mentality has always been there in India, and I think uh, I don't know how to change it. It's not like
Maybe we can come back to after you finish your studies at IASC, and like what was your thoughts back then? Like, how did you decide whether you want to continue for a PhD? And okay, let's keep it at that. Like, what things did you consider while going forward for the PhD?
aha, okay. So choosing physics after 12 was an easy decision. I liked physics, so I mm, joined ISC. But after coming to ISC, it was slightly different because ISC's bachelor course is uh, slightly different from other institutes because you are supposed to, for the first 1.5 year, you're supposed to learn almost all the science subjects: physics, chemistry, math, biology, environmental science, and material science, and plus some optional humanities course. Not optional, I mean, how do you say it? Some humanities course which are kind of compulsory, but it's not the big deal.
Okay,
Yeah,
but there is a
so you're supposed
choice,
to study them.
like 10 or 12 courses, and you have to pick like 3 or 4, something like this.
No, for the first 3 semesters, they are like all of them are compulsory courses on every subject, including humanities. But after that you choose topic. And the thing is like even choosing topics are not. It's different from other institutes' bachelor's degree because mm, we don't choose a particular area of research. We choose courses. So you can choose courses from any department inside your institute, and depending on which department's courses you have taken the most, you will have a major subject. For example, I had physics major and math minor. But yeah, but there also like decision was quite tough. I wanted to like okay after coming to uh, ISC, I also liked math a lot. So it was a like in fact we talked with our dean about it, like whether I can do a double major on physics and math. But yeah, unfortunately, even now double majors in ISC is not.
Uh-huh. It's not recognized, or like.
They don't allow you because in bachelor's we are also supposed to submit a thesis, and it's very unlikely to do two theses within the 4 years of, and you have to do it in two different departments, which is quite tough.
So you finished with one thesis. What was your master's thesis about?
Okay, so we also did a bachelor's thesis and a master's thesis. So bachelor's thesis was on conformal field theory. I know lots of jargons, but it was basically completely theoretical physics. Doesn't have too much relation with how do you say, real world in any sense.
So
But
not the
mm,
real world, like something outside or something very minute or.
yeah, so mostly it was mostly mathematical. Like uh, there are some relation to real world, but it's like difficult to explain, you know, in a couple of sentences.
I think we can move ahead to the masters one. Maybe the audience will be more interested in that as well.
Okay, so my all my projects, even in IIC, were quite diverse in some sense because I was unsure about which like I was sure that I will choose physics, but I was unsure which areas of physics I would be most interested in because I liked almost mm, most of the areas in physics. So I thought, let's try. So I did projects almost every year once, and in different topics. My bachelor's was on conformal field theory, and then in between my bachelor's and master's thesis, I did a project on quantum computation. Then in my master's thesis, I was working on something called functional renormalization group, which is still some jargon. Yeah, but at least it is slightly more grounded and uh, grounded to real physics, which happens inside experiment laboratory or something.
When when during this period did you start thinking about opting for a PhD?
In some sense, PhD was always in my mind because IIC compared to other institute is like it's a research institute. It was not a, how do you say, teaching institute ever. It started teaching for bachelor student, I think 7 or 8 years before, yeah, 7 or 8 years from now, right? So it only has like 4 or 5 batches of students who came out of IIC bachelor's degree. Before that, it was mainly a research institute. So all my professors there may lead as research. So in that sense, I was exposed to research quite early, and in that sense, I was always interested in it. But I was unsure only about the topic I want to work. I was sure that I want to do research, but I was only unsure about the topic, and and during my master's thesis, I was kind of um, trying to figure out which topics would be interesting.
How did Poland come into the picture during all this?
Okay, okay, it's a funny story. Actually, Poland didn't come into the picture. It came into the picture later. I applied to Max Planck in Dresden, which is not far from here.
Here
And
being in Wrocław, where
yeah,
right now in Poland,
yeah. So
southwest.
Dresden is like something like 50, 60 kilometers from here, and maybe a little bit more. But yeah, I actually applied to Dresden because Dresden. Okay, so Dresden Max Planck works on something called complex system physics, physics of complex systems. And I applied there. I chose one nice project which was related to my master's thesis, and the professor corresponding to that project happened to be a professor here in Woods. So I am here because of it. So it's slightly anticlimactic, but that I didn't have a good story of coming Poland. But yeah, especially in theoretical, uh, you know, topics. The only thing matters is like how good your professors are, and if your department has enough people who are working in similar areas. And you should at least have a decent international connection. So about international connection, most of the European institute is good enough. Like, it doesn't matter you, because inside EU you can always travel, and the connections are quite good. And the two other thing is, okay. So I said three things, three important things. One is like how good the connection of your institute. Second is how good is your professor, which is very hard to assess before coming here because uh, no matter how many times you interact with someone over Zoom or Google Meet, you're never going to get the correct impression how they are in real life, right? So that is slightly tricky to decide. And the last part is like how decent is your department. It doesn't have to be the best department as long as there are enough people who are working in the sense like actively working in the area that you are interested in. Then it doesn't matter which country it is, especially in theoretical physics.
Point. And maybe we skipped ahead of this part. I would like to look into it with more detail. What was the process of applying to the Max Planck Institute in Dresden? Like, how long did that take? And
Not long. Max Planck is quite decent about it in the sense that they have application process twice a year. And so process is quite simple. Like it's mostly online. You send them your CV, a small letter why you want to do it, and some other information. Maybe one or two reference later.
got it. Okay, okay. And you learned about this institute through the IASC's department? Like, was it a
Yeah, the actually one of my professor with whom I was working in my master's thesis studied in Max Planck Trust.
so? How has your experience been so far as a PhD student in Poland in terms of academic environment, resources, and the support that is available to you?
Uh-huh. Tough question, but so far I love the city. Uh, the vibe of the city is quite good. Uh, kind of matches with me, like in the sense that I have always been a little shy, and coming to Poland and all the Polish people, it feels like home because they also don't want to talk with other people, which is always the best. And apart from that, uh, okay, so technically, the PhD programs is quite new here in this institute, especially for physics. Um, so it's not really that well structured in a sense, but those are like administrative stuff. So administrative stuff could have been better, and we are still trying to make it more smooth for the new like, the upcoming PhD students. Hopefully, it will be much easier for them. But the administrative stuff, I think, can be improved. But apart from them, it has been quite good. Like
You're in the theoretical department, so there's no like equipment as such required for.
yeah, as long as you are given a computer,
Yeah.
fine.
All right. But are you familiar with the other departments, like when it comes to applied physics or experiment?
I know a few people from other departments because they also are in the same building, the experimental physics. But I don't have much idea about because here there is no, how do you say, um, big connection between uh, PhDs. PhDs. There is a decent amount of connection between the PhDs in my department and my institute, but outside the institute, it is kind of like if you can meet them by chance. It is.
That's a criticism I also have. Like as you mentioned, because in general, people in Poland are quite reserved. So these kinds of
Mhm.
events are less, and they should be more, which is part of what I was also doing back there. But more about you. In terms
Mhm.
of, there is a perception that it is hard to get a visa in Poland, and the application is tough. And so, what would you say about that? Like, for your experience, how was it applying for the visa? And
For me, it was. I don't think it was tough in any sense because okay, so the only reason someone could um, okay, so if you're coming for PhD, it's most likely you also have a source of income. Right? Your institute will provide you scholarship. Right? So in that sense, your source of income is already there. So most of the like these applications shouldn't be a problem unless there are some other documents which are missing or something. But those documents, I don't think it should be.
okay, I don't need to ask, but you did it mostly, I mean, entirely by yourself. No agencies, no consultants. What?
Yeah, yeah, of course, of course, of
Right,
course.
right.
No,
Okay.
I don't think anybody should go for agencies.
Yeah, it's much better to be done by yourself. Because it's
Yeah, at the beginning, it's if you have never done anything like that, it could be slightly daunting, but you can just talk to someone who has already done it, and then
yeah. And if someone wants to have some advice or reference, you can always reach out to me via my channel,
yes,
and I would be
yes, of
happy to
course.
help out. Can you describe like a typical day of the week in your department? What you end up doing when you start your day and so on?
Okay, so I don't think there is some kind of routine or anything, but let's say if I go there, let's say by 11 in the morning, um, other people go early, but I'm a late riser, so I also go late. But anyway, so I go there, and then it's always like because PhD is you are working on a very particular topic, and that topic is each topic is different from others. So, for example, my topic has a decent amount of coding involved. So, let's say half of my day go if I work whatever like amount of time I'm spending in work, half of it goes coding and debugging, and half of it goes reading and writing.
What would you like to talk about? Like, what was your expectation from the podcast? Like, because we didn't have this conversation before.
Um, Even I don't know myself, like what is to be expected, and I don't think I have given, especially in terms of physics, I have not given anything except for a couple of terms. Mm.
For me, like the main reason for all the podcast, it's to show the life of students of all levels in Poland, what their experiences are, what kind of decisions they made. So from that point on, it's interesting because you made the decision, applied to Max Planck, and came here and so on. So for me,
Mhm.
like my expectation was entirely more about the process and the practical aspects, but also we covered more. I mean, we didn't go into physics, but we just had like a couple of words about your thesis and so on. So for me, like it's great so far. Like I am happy with this. It's interesting to someone who doesn't know one about Poland, who is considering a PhD, um, or just wants to study abroad, like outside of India. So
I think it would be better to just talk about some stories from different parts of my life. Yeah, for example, Um, okay, so also did. Okay, let me first tell you informally how my life was there. Okay, so basically, my father is the first generation, how do you say, first person in our family history who got a job in a like he's a school teacher. So in that sense, even though like my family is quite poor in that sense, but I was in that sense quite privileged in the sense that I already have a father who has a stable job. So in that sense, I never have to worry about anything. Like only thing I had to worry about what I liked, like reading and all of those things. And I liked reading a lot in the sense that uh, which actually comes from my mother. My mother liked to read, so I also like to read. And in fact, in my the place where I went to school, like up to 10th standard, um, my room was my home was very close to the school, and the school has had two playgrounds, and there was a public library just opposite to one of the playground. So technically, my life has always been in that 1 kilometer radius because there was playground where I used to play like both in the morning and in the evening, and then there is a library where I could get like any books I wanted. So my life has always been in that sector, and the school is also there. So I studied there, I played there, and then read. So in that sense, I know more about Poland than I know about my town. And then from there, I went to. Do you know about Ramakrishna Mission? Okay, so it's like it's equivalent to a missionary school, kind of. So in my district, there is a Ramakrishna Mission, which was established by Vivekananda long back. But anyway, so there, like, okay, so there it's slightly tricky in the sense that I spent 2 years there, and so they have a big campus, really big campus, so big that inside the campus there is, I think, close to 21 playgrounds inside the campus, each for each section of a class. So every single class has their own playground where they play mostly football. But anyway, so there the thing is like because everything is inside, you are not permitted to go outside or use any kind of electronic gadgets and those kind of stuff, right? So, but those 2 years were the one, how do you say, the highlight of my life in some sense, because I made really great friends because all 60 people were there in my class. Uh, Always used to go play. We used to play together, eat together, read together, and go to classes together. So you know, those bonds are really nice. And also there, because I like to read, and they have an amazing library, also a museum inside the campus. So there I learned a lot in terms of philosophy and all of those things. So my viewpoint, whatever I view, like philosophical viewpoint I have towards life, mostly come from there. Of course, it has changed way in the last couple of years, but it originated there. Before that, I was just a boy who was completely shaped by uh, society. I have this notion, like very shallow notion of this is good, this is bad, and all of those things.
So it's by this society called Dhamma, and they do this Vipassana training, which is free
Uh,
for
mhm.
10 days, and like you pay a donation afterwards if you want to. and basically you have to
Mhm.
stay there for 10 days. You don't have to speak, you cannot speak, you cannot
Yeah,
write, you
yeah, I
cannot
heard about
read.
it.
Yeah, and you cannot even make eye contact, from what I understand. So it's 10 days of complete isolation with.
Yeah, but I think it's too extreme. Like, okay, it kind of worked out for me, but uh, I don't like. Okay, so it's hard to say, especially these kind of things, which is very subjective to human minds. Human minds are not objective like any other things. Any kind of system that you want to put that work for you or me uh, might not work for any other people, right? So something that worked for me not necessarily would work for someone else, right? And unfortunately, our society is quite rigid about it. That the teachers are not that accommodating about the problems of students. Like some students need some other kind of help, which you know. To be fair, I can say that almost all Indian teachers teach to only the top students who don't need their teaching. So, for example, whatever they teach, they're basically expecting everybody to already know. And the people who already know, they don't need the teacher to tell them because they already know it. And it's like a vicious cycle that happens almost everywhere. And that is kind of, I also felt. For example, I, toward the end of my 12th standard, I kind of stopped going to coaching classes and all of those things. And because I didn't learn anything in the coaching classes, I learned way more in by reading stuff. And because I also like our building, the place where all our batchmates used to stay in the night, that building also has a library, and I was the quote unquote librarian of that library. So I know, like, I read almost half of this book, and I know all the stuff that was there. So in that sense, that was quite nice because there I read lots of like, especially I read a lot of books which are not from the Indian authors,
Mhm.
and there you could see like when you see something from two different perspectives, same physics or same math from
Mhm.
two different perspectives, it kind of gives you a deep impression that not all the things are necessary, just some you know the core concepts are quite a few, and the rest of them are just
Noise or.
ornamentation,
Right, right.
and you can just ignore them, and you can always derive them when you need it.
I like the word ornamentation. Like it's really beautiful. Like because
Yeah.
there's very few important things in life. Everything else we think is necessary. It's not.
Yeah, so like to give you an example, have you ever seen um, uh, 11th standard, 12th standard book on physics on
Yes.
on math? So
Yes.
they're like quite huge. It's like this thick of a book, and we used to uh, joke that this is not a book. It's a weapon to kill other people. So yeah, so it's like it's almost impossible for anyone to read it uh, from and understand everything that is inside. But once you read it, you kind of understand that not all the things are important. Like, there are very few things which are important, and rest of them is like just bunch of stuff they're telling, which if you have common sense, you can just get them once you know the basic stuff.
So, who is Biplav? Like, what's your story? What's your background? Um, I would love to know more about that.
Even though, in some sense, we are not the privileged one, but for some weird reason, I was privileged, like in the sense because it's a circumstantial thing because um, in some sense, my parents and my teachers guarded me so much from the childhood that I could barely. They were very protective about me in that sense. In the sense that I was, how do you say it? Like I was more privileged than any other institute, any other student in that wherever I went. Like in terms of how do you say, in terms of support until let's say class 10 or something like that. So until class 10, so which is weird in the sense that my father didn't have that much support, but for some reason I had all the support, which and also it has to like it's a luck, like people say that everything happens through hard work and all of those things, but I don't think it's true. Life is just luck.
But that begs the question, like, why, in your perspective, were you privileged or protected more than anyone? Like, what was the
I
motivation?
mean, it's the society, right? For example, if you for example, I have always been how do you say, quote unquote topper in in okay, so it would sound like a brag, but anyway, I not only I was the top in class, I was also the guy who used to bring medals in sport as well. So in that sense, I have always been, how do you say, the golden boy of this school. So in that sense, I was privileged, even though hmm, privileged not necessarily in like, how do you say, in a conventional sense, but privileged in the sense that in terms of support and in terms of all the resources that I got, and some of the resources I got that I got was in a very fortunate moment. So, so like it's like whenever I felt like I want to do something else, immediately I found someone who kind of answered that question. So, for example, when I decided to not go for medical, I disliked biology. Um, and at the same time, I got also got introduced to a teacher who was very passionate about physics, and then we talked and kind of decided I think I want to do physics. And so this kind of, how do you say, luck or randomness that happened, which turned out to be a good decision. But it's still a luck, right? Because many people probably went through the similar phase as me, just didn't get that chance, and probably, which is sad that yeah, as we were telling earlier that we don't give enough uh, second chances to people. Once you uh, failures are not recognized at okay, it's not like I didn't fail. Like, let's say all my failures are small until uh, I become an adult. After that, it has been a mess of a career.
But it's also very interesting point about having influential people, or not influential per se, but
Yeah, right people at the right time telling you the right thing.
yes, and we believing that that is the right thing to do.
Yeah, yeah, kind of it. Like it's something like it kind of fell into places. Like it's like a puzzle, and somehow the first piece that you pick up is the next piece that you are supposed to put. So it's a luck. Like it shouldn't happen most of the time, but for some reason it happened with me. And
Fortunate accident, or however we call it, but
yeah,
in the end, I think that we should be grateful towards them more than anything, like whether or not it
yeah,
has
of
a,
course.
yeah, like whether or not it has a religious connotation or not, but being grateful is the least that that I think we should offer towards these incidents, whether they be fortunate or unfortunate. Because I personally like to think that uh, we sh- okay, this is a bit cliche
Yeah.
as well, but like being born, having the capacity, having the chance to experience all these different emotions, sensations, everything. It's enough to be grateful for. So no matter what we do in life, what we achieve or not, being grateful is the minimum requirement that I personally think that every human being should experience, without a religious connotation.
Yeah. I would like to comment something on it. I don't think it's grateful, but it's like um, self confidence kind of stuff. So, for example, I've been thinking about this quite a lot recently. Insecurities and all of these things. So, almost everyone has some kind of insecurity about their identity and all of those things, right? Indian people especially, because our society is like that. Uh, from childhood, people will instill some kind of insecurity inside you, whether if you are short in height, you
Yeah, dark
height,
skin color.
yeah, dark skin tone, and you don't look, you look ugly, and all of those things, or some kind of beauty standard, whatever they have. And this kind of things, once you, for example, and the thing is like, it's so inbuilt to our society that sometimes even your mom, even your parents, or even your siblings or other family member will want you about that, and it kind of become a big insecurity inside you, and and I think like whatever you are saying, this feeling of grateful, it I think it's better to have self confidence than being grateful to people. Self confidence in the sense that whatever I am happy with whatever I am. Right. So this kind of feeling that I think is more important than I think being grateful to whatever. For example, even you can be grateful, but still you feel shitty about yourself. Like I feel like shit, but I'm grateful that I'm a shit. Right. That shouldn't be the feeling, right? The feeling should be that whatever I am. Right. I can be better, of course. I can be worse also. But whatever choices I made myself here and should be proud of that. It doesn't have to be like okay. There are many people who helped you there, of course. Uh, we don't exist in vacuum. Uh, every decision that we have take is influenced by someone. Some have big influence, some have small influence, but people influence you. Every single person that you have talked has influenced you some way or another, and you cannot deny that. And some of them has good influence, but at the end, it's your choice. You made the decision. They have helped you to make the decision, but it should be your decision. And that's why I think like self confidence or not like self. I cannot find the exact word. It's like
I think acceptance is the.
yeah, not acceptance. It's like being proud of yourself. Not, for example, I have many identities. I am a man. I am in India. I am a Bengali, and all of those things. But none of this identity individually define myself, or I don't define any of them. Right? It's a some combination of all of these things define myself, and to be proud of that, whatever I am is, I think, then you will feel like okay, it's fine. And it doesn't have to be. And you are saying it does. It could be religious as well. But it doesn't have to be.
Maybe we can break it down even further. Like the first step would be to recognize like what exactly you have. Like if we talk about the insecurities that, okay, if I have dark skin color and my friends would tease me or something, or if I have short height, or if you have,
Mhm.
I don't know, if you're fat or anything. So the first step is the recognition that um, the recognition is that the other individual also has some sort of insecurity which they don't want to come out, and that's why they are pointing out the obvious ones, because the
Mhm. True, but the thing is like the idea that um, okay, so in some sense you are saying that you are kind of trying to justify why people do these things, and it's okay. Of course, most of the bullying and all of those things come from insecurity.
yes,
It's it's known, but that's not what I was trying to make. Like when you try to accept yourself, you shouldn't be comparing yourself to any other. For example, I shouldn't be okay with my insecurities just because someone also might have insecurities. I don't care what other insecurities people have.
I meant it more as like this like aham brahmasmi sort of look, like the the point is that the recognition of someone else also having an insecurity is a very big recognition. That when we talk about children, or when we talk about teenagers are very obsessed with themselves, and they don't recognize, like if I have a pink pimple when I'm like 14 or 15, then I only care about that pimple, that oh, everyone is seeing it, everyone is seeing it. So the idea is that individuals might be, or maybe, I personally believe that it's quite strong, they're consumed by themselves and they lack this larger perspective of someone else experiencing the same thing. So from that standpoint, I think it's the first step, like to look outside of yourself, and then to accept that okay, this is normal, like it's not a big deal, or um,
Yeah, but it's hard to say, like, for example, if you teach this thing to a child, okay, he might not uh, get those insecurities, but still he will find some other insecurities.
yeah, yeah, they're always there.
But the thing is, like, at some point, uh, it's it's not what I was trying to say. Like, it's not that much external. Like, no matter how much I explain to you that you shouldn't have this insecurity, you can't get rid of that insecurity unless you yourself, you know, deal with it in some way or
That's
other.
I understand. Like I think that's also very like in Greek philosophy, like Stoic. Like it doesn't matter what's around you. It's like in the end you have to react to a circumstance, or you have to.
No, no, it kind of matters. Like, of course, it matters because um, like other people thinking always matters, but it shouldn't be your entire point of existence. And I don't believe that any teenager should be uh, thinking the way I am thinking. You know, it's a stage of life. Just enjoy whatever you are doing. At that stage, that gives you, how do you say, more adrenaline. Okay, go for it.
Maybe just one last question, what are your plans? Like, if you would like to sum up, how has your experience been in Poland? You have been there for 2 years, if I remember correctly.
Yes, yes, I have been here almost 2 years, um, and so far it has been quite nice. I made a lot of friends, you included.
Yes, that's nice.
Mm.
It's a pleasure to
And
have you as a friend, by the way. You're a really amazing individual.
yeah, but yeah, so yeah, I like weather. Initially, it was slightly hard to deal with the winter, but now I kind of liked it so much so that I cannot withstand more than 30 degrees now.
That's a curse. Wow.
Yeah, but it also has to do with like my bachelor's and master's was in Bangalore, and I have never went to my home in summer. I So technically, Bangalore summer is like spring here. So
Thanks a lot, Biplav, for your time today. And I got a few things to think about as well. Thank you so much for sharing your experience
thank you so much for having me.
right. And if you would also like to study in Poland, reach out to me. Sign up via the form. It's in the description, and we can come up with the best possible explanation. And do consider subscribing to the channel. There will be more podcasts coming for bachelor's, master's students in different fields, experiences, as you can tell. Yeah, so thanks again. Wow, that was a lot, right? So if you enjoyed that, do consider subscribing to the channel. There will be more podcasts coming in the coming weeks. And yeah, if you're already in Poland or about to start your bachelor's, master's, PhD this October, I wish you the best.